Oh, it's high definition.
Hello. Yes, I know. We're up to 1080p. So
That's
that
not good for me.
Well, it's going to tell me that the internet can't handle it in a minute. But hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Common Censored.
Hey, got it.
I think this is also a podcast called Common Censored. So if you prefer the podcast, check it out. I'm here with the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield, and we got a big show for you. We're going to start off by talking about this plane crash, just because I think when there's a story this large, that's kind of what everybody's talking about. It looks weird if we don't.
It a plane crash or a helicopter crash? Because I feel like it was the helicopter that crashed into the plane. Ergo, wouldn't we call it
Plelicopter? Plelicopter crash. It just is weird if we come on a news show and the daily news show and go, what's going on? So we'll talk about it for a minute, but there's not a lot to add outside of what the mainstream media has already told you, I think. But there are no survivors. It's
for
like
those
60
of you
on
who
the.
don't know. A plane and a helicopter crashed into one another right outside of Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. last night. And that's what we're talking about.
And you can tell from this diagram that literally the helicopter is like feet from the runway. I mean,
it shouldn't be. Like, there's no reason for a helicopter to be anywhere near
a good place to hang out.
Yeah.
And so, some are saying it was possible it was somehow intentional. Apparently, there were several close misses before this one hit,
which is not.
Oh yeah,
it's not a. In the words of George Carlin, it's not a near miss; it's a near hit.
What's that? Oh yeah,
because that's when it doesn't.
No, this
is a crash.
This is a hit. You were confusing me. This is not a near miss nor a near hit. This is a hit. What we're talking about.
Well, we're right, but a near miss is a hit. Oh, you nearly missed him, but you crashed right into him. Yes. So the proper verbiage should
not be... Not for this.
No, but
that's what you need to make clear.
Each other, it really should be called a near hit. Because if it's a near miss, you have what we have here, which is a crash.
And in record time, we've lost everyone. That was really, I'm impressed. We broke our old record. So, the helicopter, clearly in the landing area of Reagan Airport. One interesting fact about this is this has suddenly made our media and I guess Americans care about some Russian people, which is the first time that is allowed to happen in years, I think. Years. Yes, there were 2 Russian figure skaters, and New York Times has done a very loving piece about them and their love for each other and everything, and Olympic winners. And I think that's great because nationalism is a brain parasite. So to care, to be like, oh, they're Russian, I dislike them, is just utter garbage. And we're seeing that right now. But here's another interesting thing. Now, I am of the strong belief or suspicion that this played no role in the crash. But it is kind of interesting that Trump, a week ago, fired the head of TSA, the Coast Guard, and gutted key aviation safety advisory committee. And this is an AP article from several days ago. So this has nothing to do with the crash.
Well, so, okay, explain why you feel it has nothing to do with
the crash. No, I meant that article has nothing to do with the crash. I don't think it has to do with the crash because I think just because you fire the head of an agency doesn't mean things would instantly just dissolve.
Well, when it says gutted aviation safety committee, what does that mean?
So that would probably be the committee that would now look over what the hell went down here. So,
but it's not a preventative.
I don't think it would have
been.
Well, it could have been preventative long term, like a year from now. There might be changes that happen because of the aviation advisory committee, but I don't think in a week they weren't like, all right, this week stop worrying about helicopters because Trump fired some people. I don't know that much would change. I mean, please, someone argue with me, but
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just arguing. You know what it is? I have my cozy octogenarian sweater on, and it's causing me to say things like Washington and washing machine and arguing.
Who knew a sweater could have such power?
I just find it, the coincidence is rather, that
he fires all these people and then they
yes
collision happens.
But it also does seem like if you look at the flight path of the helicopter, it seems like it was going after the plane. Not like it knew who was on the plane or anything, but like that it was trying to hit the plane. Of course, I have nothing. I'm not saying that this is fact. I'm not saying that I have a source. No, I'm just saying that when you look at the path, it looks a little questionable. So
it does seem like one of those.
Because a helicopter would know where Reagan National Airport is. I mean, it's not like it's hiding. It's an airport, so it's not like you wouldn't be able to notice it in a helicopter.
Supposedly, this Black Hawk was on a training run, meaning you could argue the pilot had no idea what they were doing, like they were new to it. But you still got two other guys in there that are supposed to know what the hell they're doing, and I don't know why you would fly straight into the landing path of Reagan.
Do helicopters have like a black box that records like a conversation the way that planes do?
Probably, but I did listen to. Someone has already released the audio, 1 minute of the, not a lot of it, but right before the collision of the FAA or whatever telling the helicopter, like asking them if they see the flight and to get out of the way. And I think it seems from the audio, there's no response from the helicopter that I could tell, but I don't know.
Which then my next question is,
was
rather fuzzy audio on autopilot and like leave?
Could you put the helicopter on autopilot and leave? Can you leave, you mean?
I mean, I can, but you don't like my scoot. No, can you jump out?
And have the helicopter land by itself?
No, not land.
You said autopilot.
Crash into the plane.
Oh, autopilot into a plane.
Not okay.
I don't think that's a button.
Okay, jackass.
click the run into plane.
Autopilot button on your course. Can you do that with a helicopter?
Okay. That I don't know either.
So clearly there are some questions.
There's some questions, yeah. We don't have the answers to, but anyway, Trump is gutting all the transportation safety systems, which that's just a smart move right there. I mean, that's what you do if you want to help a country. You just got all the safety commissions and everything. So moving on to how insane and stupid our government has become, and this is the first time in so long I've seen you excited to show or even watch a clip from Congress.
Oh my God, this is so amazing. This is the best thing I've seen. And I don't watch television, so okay, excuse me, but this is legit the best thing that I've seen in a long time. So
we're going to play some of RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing, which was amazeballs. It is, if you're looking for some popcorn watching. And, we have a nuanced view on a lot of these issues, which, of course, you're not allowed to have in today's world. You either have to be all or nothing. And so people get mad at us, but whatever, it is what it is. And you'll see as we go through it. But are you cool with we're going to show the Bernie Sanders clip, but are you cool with just playing?
I can wait to get to Bernie.
to get to the Bernie clip.
I'm just saying the Bernie clip is where it's at. And it's not because I love Bernie, but when this man gets mad about, you'll just have to see.
You have to see. Okay, let's just play some clips and see what happens.
Was a genetically engineered bioweapon.
So you can't, because Instagram blows balls, it plays the first 3 seconds without you hearing it. He said, you said, and he's quoting him, COVID-19 was a genetic weapon. And here we go.
Weapon that targets black and white people, but spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people.
I didn't say it was deliberately targeted. I just quoted an NIH-funded and NIH published study.
Did you say that it targets black and white people but spared Ashkenazi Jews?
I quoted a study, Your Honor. I quoted an NIH study that showed that.
I'll take that as yes. I have to move on. I have to move on.
Spares Ashkenazi Jews.
Now. There's so many levels.
Chinese people, but like I guess not Japanese people. Or
no.
Koreans.
No. There's so many levels to this idiocy that is coming from both sides. Congress is not bright. I'm not going to give them credit for that. RFK Jr. is right about certain things, and he also will blatantly make things up and blatantly lie. And if you actually look into the things he said, even the studies he's quoted, you can find that he's manipulated them, changed them. He's changed what he said. He, in the quote, and I've heard the quote, he does say it targeted. Now, targeted is different than anything that the study comes even close to showing. It's nothing about targeting. And so I looked up the NIH study, and here's this is the BBC talking about it, but I also looked up the actual study. But here they respond to that, and they say, let's see. Kennedy said at a press event last year in a video that COVID-19 is targeted against to attack Caucasians and Black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. He says, let's see, the claims of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are very damaging given they do not follow scientific evidence. This is Professor Melinda Mills at Oxford University. She said, as many peer-reviewed COVID-19 studies have shown, differences in COVID infections and deaths between socioeconomic and ethnic groups is related to inequalities, deprivation, and living in larger or intergenerational households. And this is, some of this is common sense. It's like, if there is a difference in the impact on certain populations, you have to look at a lot of variables, right? How do those populations live? Is there a socioeconomic difference? All of those things. The way Kennedy refers to it, he's ignoring all of those things.
So, well, the other thing is, I have no idea where the Ashkenazi Jew comment comes from, but like the Chinese part, I can kind of see where people, and I mean, I'm not saying it's right, but fewer Chinese per capita dying because they actually took care of them. They have a healthcare system that prioritizes life over profit. Like, but that's kind of like saying that, I don't know, places in Europe that have socialized healthcare, that, cancer doesn't affect Spanish people as much. It's like, no, that's not true. They just have a better healthcare system that prioritizes life over profit. So it's like you create these horrifically twisted and ultimately racist or xenophobic perspectives based on, I have no idea where he's getting these facts, and the Ashkenazi Jew thing is definitely like, I have no idea.
Well, no, there was an NIH study that analyzed some of these groups, but it's not saying what he says it said.
Right.
So that's the key. And then I just want to read this last quote. This is from one of the report authors. So I was just quoting an NIH study. Well, here's the NIH study author. Has responded by strongly rejecting this interpretation of the study and that its findings never supported Kennedy's claims. Okay? So Kennedy RFK is this way of saying things and you go, oh my God, he's quoting a study. Well, then it must be true. And then you look back and even the study's authors are saying he's mischaracterizing what the study says. At the same time, I have also talked positively about Kennedy's analysis of like factory farms and things like that. So it's not that everything he says is garbage, but on certain topics it is. On Israel, everything he says is garbage.
He's such an asshole.
He's loves a good genocide when it comes to Israel.
I want them to hear it. You said yes. Did you say that exposure to pesticides causes children to become transgender?
No, I never said that.
Okay, I have the record that I'll give to the chairman, and he can make his judgment about what you said. Did you write in your book, and it's undeniable that African AIDS is an entirely different disease from Western AIDS? Yes or no, Mr. Kennedy?
I'm not sure if I made that.
Okay, I'll give it to the chairman, Mr. Kennedy, and my final.
But then also, it also speaks to such hypocrisy. If he said these things, then why not defend them? That last quote was in his book. So it's in your book. Wouldn't you want to defend the thing you said in your book? But all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't know if I said that.
Well, because I think he realizes that in the context, because he's not sitting at some kind of, anti-trans, like he's not, I'm not saying that Congress is pro-trans, but he's not sitting amongst people who are just there to butter him up and to be like, yeah, you're great and everything you say is awesome. So I think his defense would be situational, right? And I think that if he were in a different situation, then he would probably be like, yes, I said that because, and let me explain, like on Joe Rogan's podcast, or something like that, where he's not going to get any pushback. But here he realizes that they're asking these questions in order to put him in a got you kind of moment. And he doesn't want to back that up, because I think he also realizes that sounds absolutely bananas to say that trans people, I guess, are just they exist because they have been huffing pesticides in their free time. I don't know. It's just like, wow.
And I think what this speaks to is RFK Jr. is a politician just like the others. I think a lot of people thought he was different, and it shows he's willing to say one thing one day, change it the next day, whatever was likely to get him through this process. But anyway, let's keep going.
Isn't true. That's not reflective of what you really believe, that you haven't said over decade after decade after decade, because unlike other jobs we're confirming around this place, this is a job where it is life and death for the kids that I used to work for in the.
And of course, we will also make fun of Congress. This is hilarious considering this Congress, life and death, has supported a genocide for a year and a few months. They just confirmed a maniac for the head of the Pentagon. But of course, and the only problem they had with Hegseth was sexual assault allegations, which should be a problem. But you know what else might be a problem? If you're a bloodthirsty monster who wants to bomb children. But of course, that's not a problem for them, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a bloodthirsty monster.
Yeah, unlike other jobs.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is no question that abortion is a divisive issue in this country. I would say a majority of the people are pro-choice. There's a strong minority who are pro-life. A year and a half ago, you went to New Hampshire, running for president, gave a speech, and you talked about government should not tell a woman what she can do with her own body. That's her choice. Now, I think everybody on that side is pro-life. I think everybody here is pro-choice. I have never seen any major politician flip on that issue quite as quickly as you did when Trump asked you to become HHS secretary. Tell me why you think people should have confidence in your consistency and in your word when you really made a major U-turn on an issue of that importance in such a short time.
Senator.
Gotta go to the next one if you can hear it.
Yeah, I will. But yeah, that's a great point. What a quick flip. You notice Bernie talks about how that was a really quick flip, because many of them have flipped. They flip on a lot of things. He's like, but that one was faster than normal. Like Donald Trump has flipped on abortion. Also, thank you, Firepower, in the comments was saying she was screaming at her television set of Bernie, who hasn't done anything for the health of Americans during a lot of the past 4 years, even though he will talk a lot about universal health care. In other regards, he has not. So, and this goes for so many of these Congress. I mean, they're all full of shit, but this was an amazing hearing because of the shit coming out of both sides, and it kind of like sprays into a beautiful fountain in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, this is by no means pro-Congress. I still think that our Congress is just a pile of human refuse. It's just that I find this really hilarious and also indicative of the kind of people that are kind of like the shit fountain. The shit fountain is pushing these people to the top, and it's like, this is the best we can do. Oh, no. It's just that this is what's at the top of the shit fountain.
So somehow both of us had shit fountain metaphors that were different. They were each unique in their own way.
I was yes-anding your shit fountain metaphor.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Let's not say any more words. It'll decrease the views on YouTube.
Senator, I believe, and I've always believed, that every abortion is a tragedy.
But you told the people of New Hampshire that it was their right.
That's not an answer.
All right, let me do a last question because I'm running out of time. I think the gist of what you're trying to say today is you're really pro-vaccine. You want to ask questions.
Because we didn't show it, he spent a lot of this hearing saying he actually is pro-vaccine. saying that he supports safe vaccines, and he says his kids have been vaccinated. And now here's the thing is, Eleanor and I have nuanced view on vaccines. They should be heavily tested, which many are not. But beyond that, there is a multi-billion-dollar industry to get a lot of them on the schedule for, especially for children. And if you look at other countries, which have very healthy people, the schedule is not nearly what the United States is, meaning we are expected to take more vaccines than other countries. And I don't think that's right. And it's profit-based. And that's a problem. But you can say that and also understand that certain vaccines have saved a lot of lives. Those are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I think the problem, and that I could talk about this for ages, but I think the problem is that when you grow up with a very binary like paradigm, you've got the Republicans and the Democrats, you've got black and white, you've got male and female, everything's very binary. I think it's difficult for people to and it was for me too. It's difficult for people to learn how to engage with the nuance of a situation. So vaccines, like a lot of things, are a nuanced conversation, but people have this feeling that they have to pick a side and that there are only two sides to this conversation. You either never vaccinate or you get all of the ones and you just take them, like you're shoving them in your throat and you're like sticking yourself on the dick with these vaccines. It's like, that's not, there's more room than those two very disparate, very extreme perspectives. So I think that's really what's missing here. Of course, it's also missing in this confirmation hearing, because I feel like RFK could just easily say, I have a nuanced perspective, Senator, and let me explain it to you, but he doesn't. So he misses out on that opportunity as well.
Well, he tries to give a kind of nuanced perspective, but it's not one he's had, or like it's not one he normally has. So he says, oh, I'm pro-vaccine, and then he says, well, not really, and it's very confusing for people. Anyway, this is where the clip becomes Saturday Night Live material.
You have started a group called the Children's Health Defense. You're the originator. Right now, as I understand it, on their website, they are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Unvaxxed, Unafraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Next one is No Vax, No Problem. Now you're coming before this committee and you say you're pro-vaccine. Just want to ask some questions. And yet your organization is making money selling a child's product.
Senator, I believe, and I've
by the way, I'm sure sales of those must have skyrocketed after this. I guarantee they're going to keep them up now. But the other thing is, well, okay, I'm jumping ahead of myself. He goes on to say he's not connected to that organization.
To parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are pro-vaccine, that you're going to have your organization take these products off the market?
Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not part of it. I resigned from the board.
Yeah, that was just a few months ago. You founded that. You said.
Also, Eleanor just pulled it up, and he's on the
landing page.
The landing page is him, and it says Robert Kennedy confirmation hearing. He's on the landing page. So
I have nothing to do with that organization.
Never heard of it. Never heard of it. But so to give you the other side of it, what went on? Where was it? Where I say someone's just said it in the chat, but now I can't find it.
Onesie gate.
Someone said show the part where Senator Warren started crying because RFK Jr. Oh, there is Kat. Thank you, Kat. Show the part where Senator Warren starts crying because RFK Jr. has sued Big Pharma, which is the reverse side. It's like these Congress people will support Big Pharma at like almost every step.
Right.
Every step. They love Big Pharma. Big Pharma's only job is to make money, and they don't care how many Americans get harmed in the process. They are Wall Street. Wall Street, of course, is the leaked Goldman Sachs memo where they're telling investors not to invest in cures, instead invest in treatments, because then you can keep making money for a long time as opposed to a cure. If you just cure someone, that's not a lot of money. Well, Big Pharma is the same. And so I would love for there to be more RFKs suing Big Pharma in one regard or another.
Mm-hmm.
But, then RFK goes on to, not in this hearing, but in other times, has gone on to lie, saying that you're not allowed to sue Big Pharma. And he actually has sued them. So it's kind of, you got to take him with a grain of salt. Also, his disgusting, repulsive stance on Israel.
Yeah, no, I just don't think he's not like a good guy. I think he's a bit of a grifter and goes where he feels he can he can make a name for himself. But yeah, I mean, this is
also putting that dead bear in Central Park. That's really not cool.
Oh, that's a whole thing.
We're
not going to get into that.
Like 15, 20 years ago, they found a dead bear in Central Park. It turned out years later, he admitted that he had found it dead on a road, put it in his trunk, had it there for hours, went out drinking, and then realized he had to catch a flight. So he dumped it in Central Park.
Like you do, right?
Like you do.
Like you do, especially if you care about the environment. Yeah. So, but wait, you haven't even gotten to the best.
The one
where?
Oh, do you support
where
this one?
Yeah.
I didn't realize I missed that.
Oh.
Certainly have power. You can make that call. Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with
Are you
leadership.
supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive of this clothing, which is militantly anti-vaccine?
I am supportive of vaccines. I will. I want good science, and I want to protect.
But you will not tell the organization you founded not to continue selling that product. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
There is no.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
There is no way Saturday Night Live this weekend, which by the way is never funny, but there's no way Saturday Night Live this weekend does not open with, "Do you support these onesies?
Oh my God.
Do you stand by these onesies?"
That is the most amazing question that's ever been asked inside of our Congress.
That's our Congress. For anybody watching in another country, this is our Congress.
This is our Congress.
This is what you're getting. On the same day that flights are crashing and killing 70 people, we're arguing, do you support these onesies? Have you now or ever been a member of a group that supported these onesies?
I mean, whoever thought that the fall of empire wasn't going to be funny was wrong. At least we still can laugh, folks.
Oh my God. And then while we were laughing, I barely heard it. He said, because RFK Jr. says, I am pro-vax. And then Bernie Sanders goes, but do you support these onesies that are militantly anti-vax? Militantly. Yeah. The baby in a onesie with a AK-47 demanding
I love it.
that he not be vaxxed.
I love it so much.
It doesn't get any better than that. I think we started with the closer, but
no, I think that's like opening with "Welcome to the Jungle."
Okay, well,
lead with the strong.
We'll jump to another amazing video. By the way, everybody, support this show. We are incredibly suppressed and censored, and it really is because of you. Also, it would be awesome. I'm trying to give a little bit of a boost to the podcast. It'd be awesome if you look up one of our podcasts. This one is called Common Censored. I have others called The Lee Cam Show, Moment of Clarity, and Just Comedy. And if you can look up any of those and support them, that would be awesome. So a lot of podcasts, a lot of audio listening if you want that as well. But anyway, let's move on to another video, which is pretty amazing. This is the Polish member of the EU Parliament. EU Parliament. Yeah. Thank you. Grzegorz Braun. I can get Braun. I got Braun. I think I got Braun right. You say
I would like to buy a vowel.
You say his name.
Gregorz? Gregorz.
Grzegorz? So none of your Swedish helped you with this at all?
Okay, really? Swedish is not like Polish, you dick.
I didn't mean it was.
Completely different language.
I just thought it might give you some hint in one direction or another.
Still a different language. Thank you. Drive through.
Anyway, during the EU Parliament, they called for, because the other day was Holocaust Remembrance Day. I was going to say Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day. And so they called for 30 seconds of silence. And he, if you can't hear him, yells for a moment of silence for the victims of the Jewish genocide in Gaza. And anyway, The punchline is really the last second.
Teraz bardzo proszę o minutę ciszy. Chcemy uczcić pamięć ofiar Holokaustu. Bardzo proszę o ciszę.
So here's the silence.
Let's pray for the victims of the Jewish genocide in Gaza.
I'm kind of surprised they stayed quiet.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for praying for the victims of the Jewish genocide in Gaza.
Where is he? I don't.
No, you can't.
Okay.
The camera's not on him.
Oh, okay. I thought the camera would try to find him. Okay.
No, the camera's not on him. He yelled it out, and then there's a silence, and he's like, "Well, you did it. Thank you."
I also like that he said it in English so that we could all enjoy it. Thank you.
That was nice of him. That was nice of him. I mean, the EU is a varied body.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't that an amazing prank?
Prank?
Yeah,
I don't know that it was a prank. I think he was genuine. No?
I think it was a great prank. No, I used to call it pranktivism.
Well,
Prank
yes,
activism.
but yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was beautifully done. I think you can have a moment for both, but of course they're not doing that, are they?
Well,
The EU
no.
Parliament's not going to stand up for the genocide in Gaza or against it.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of layers there. I'm not going to get into it at the moment.
Okay. So
I did put up a post on my Instagram if you're curious, at Radical Eleanor. That's all.
about Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Yeah, a little bit about like the parallels and the need to recognize the parallels. We don't own the word genocide or the word Holocaust.
And that's at Radical Eleanor on Instagram, the greatest platform on the internet. And I hope it burns down.
You know, have you ever thought that maybe the censorship you're experiencing is because you can't go one show without saying how much you hate Instagram?
Anything's coming from Instagram on YouTube. They control YouTube?
I mean, it's like a one big circle jerk. They all like know each other.
True. That is very true. Now they're currently all fluffing Donald Trump. So we did some coverage on Trump's I guess I did on my live stream, but on his freeze of funding, which, because the way Trump and his administration, this goes for the last 4 years too, do things is it's all very vague. It's all very confusing. It's a lot of fighting over what is happening and no one knows. And so as I was covering it, there was not a lot of clarity on which programs would be frozen. The way the executive action was stated, it basically meant a freeze on all federal funding for so many things. Anyway, and the Medicare portal was like turned off for a good amount of time because they weren't sure whether they could keep going forward with it, which meant there were people in hospitals not knowing whether they were getting covered. Anyway, so it's just a giant shit show. Since then, he has now already backed away on that freeze. Trump administration has rescinded the order attempting to freeze federal aid spending. And I heard an interesting podcast with David Dayen, who does great work, saying that this is a long-term, now they've rescinded it, so I don't know what the next step is, but a long-term effort to take the power of the purse, as they call it, stupid term, but take the power of the budgets away from Congress and give it to the president, because if he or she is allowed to basically say they'll spend money on whatever they want, no matter what the budget says, then that makes Congress meaningless. Now, Congress is meaningless in a lot of ways anyway,
But how, I mean, that's not anything that he can do just by saying, I don't wanna.
No, what they were suspecting is that his plan was this would be a giant fight. It would get to the Supreme Court. He's hoping the Supreme Court sides with him, and then he can say, I don't want to.
Right.
All right, but let's move on to Trump's other amazing recent actions. He now says he's going to deport what I think he calls anti-Semites.
Have you already talked about the condoms?
No, that's on the show.
Oh.
We'll get into that later.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that happened yesterday and you'd already.
But you did just give away a punchline, so we got that going.
There's no way for me to ask it without asking it. What was I supposed to say if you already talked about the penis sheets? I don't know.
Would you like to talk about this story?
Go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Well, since Eleanor's giving it away, now
I-
we're skipping to these stories she's talking about because it's kind of weird to bring something up and then just abandon it. So let's go over to this first, and then we'll get back to the deporting of quote unquote Hamas sympathizers. Trump had said in his speech, well, I'll just show it. Let's watch what Trump had said in his speech.
Oh, do we have to watch it?
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's 20 seconds. It's so worth it. It's better than the onesies.
No.
And stopped $50 million being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas. 50 million. And you know what's happened to them? They've used them as a method of making bombs. How about that?
So let's just breeze past the fact that he said they're making bombs out of condoms, but I don't
think we should breeze past that lead.
I don't know what the hell that is.
If this is like that little cookbook, I want to know,
You have a condom cookbook?
No, like how to build, like the cookbook that shows you how to build bombs. Like if condoms are not included in that, they need to be, because that is truly amazing.
But it gets even better. Not only does that sound insane, Hamas is making condom bombs with American condoms. Here's from Dropside News. Turns out the United States did send $50 million for STD prevention to Gaza, $83 million to be exact. However, it just so happens it was sent to the province of Gaza in Mozambique, the country located on the southeastern coast of Africa. Hamas in Gaza, Palestine, did not receive 50 million or 83 million worth of U.S. condoms from that grant, as President Trump said.
I'm guessing they didn't get any condoms. I can't see that being something the U.S. is sending to Palestine at all.
And again, for those of you in other countries, this is our government.
Yeah.
You've got the president saying we're sending $50 million of condoms to Hamas.
Do you remember when Bush was the dumb one?
Oh my God. You know what it was?
Simpler times.
It was simpler times. There
There
was something in Bush's eyes where it looked like he knew he was dumb.
Really? I thought he always looked like totally lost.
Yeah. Like lost, and he knew he was lost. There's something about Trump where he is breathtakingly dumb and doesn't know it.
No.
Yeah.
To him, he is the most brilliant person in the world.
Anyway, that's a pretty amazing moment. Thank goodness we have Trump here to stop those Hamas condom bombs. Oh, wait, I didn't mean to show that one. Let's see here. Let's get back to the fact that Trump has pledged to deport Hamas sympathizers on college campuses.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
Well, this is in relation to a lot of. Is this the one where he's said that he'll not renew visas for student? Yeah,
student protesters.
So basically, this is. I mean, he has said that he wants to deport American citizens, and I don't feel that just I don't believe in citizenship anyway. But that would obviously be a whole other legal can of worms. But he's also saying that he would not allow visas to be renewed by students who are, pro-Hamas, really just pro-Palestine.
Anti-genocide.
Which is horrifying. And it also speaks to the extremely interconnected web of surveillance. So I recently interviewed Thea Chattel, who's an investigative reporter and also a student at Yale. And she sued Yale Police Department in a FOIA request, basically to get access to what ended up being a trove of documents that show extensive surveillance of Yale students engaging in their First Amendment rights to protest, engage in free speech, sit on a quad. And basically, there's drone footage of them. Can you stop scrolling and other stuff?
I'm about to pull up this article.
It's just so hard to concentrate. Because I want to look this way. I feel like if I start looking this way and talking, it's distracting for the people watching. So basically and to the point where they're also like checking to see where they're using their ID cards, where they've swiped them and those kind of things. And also working with the FBI. Yale Police Department has worked with the FBI. They've worked with anti-terrorism groups. So when Trump says that he's doing this, I think a lot of people their knee-jerk reaction might be like, oh, well, how the hell are you going to find these people? Well, you're going to find these people because there is a massive interconnected network of surveillance against students because it's interconnected with university police departments, which yes are a thing, and it shouldn't be, and it's totally creepy. Students basically walk into a panopticon as soon as they walk onto a college campus these days. It's horrifying. But so it's very easy to tap into that and find these students, find the students who were engaging in their First Amendment rights and engaging in anti-genocide dissent. So it is very concerning and scary to think that this is the reality, but it also pretty much tracks with not just Trump, but also with what Biden was. I mean, the crackdowns on these student protesters that we all saw, and that was this incredibly violent blowback, happened under Biden. So I think we should make sure to not forget that.
Yeah, and it is, of course, going after First Amendment rights. It's going after people who are citizens here. The whole idea of being a citizen is that you can't be deported. And yeah, people are raising the question of deported to where? Many of these people, there is no place that they necessarily call home if they're living here.
Well, and a lot of these students, I mean, they might be from. If they're here on a visa, then they probably have come relatively recently from another country, but it doesn't mean that it's safe to go back there. For instance, I have a friend who is studying here in the United States and is from Kashmir, but she can't go back because she's been threatened by the Indian government for speaking out on Kashmir. So just because somebody might have pretty recently come from another country in order to study here in the United States and has a strong connection to that country, it doesn't mean that it's safe for them to go there.
He has also said he's going to be deporting 30,000 illegal immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. And, this brings up a lot of factors. Of course, there's Trump's horrific deportation raids. And as I always mention, Biden deported more than Trump in 4 years, but maybe Trump will beat that record. And it's also the horror show of what is Guantanamo Bay. This should be Cuban land. It's part of Cuba.
I mean, yeah.
The United States should not be there any longer, but instead it continues to operate as basically a torture prison where it held human beings without any charges for years and years and years.
And then also deports them to places they're not from.
And then does that as well. So yeah.
The ones that they release, of course, there are still so many people who have never been convicted of a crime, just picked up by U.S. forces and transferred to Gitmo and tortured and continue to be held there. And so this is also, I mean, I can wait to get to that, but this also very much tracks with something that I like to talk about a lot, which is that things don't exist in vacuums. And so the fact that Trump wants to send a bunch of what he calls illegal immigrants to Gitmo to share space with the people who from the Middle East who are illegally being held there is it's an interconnected web of U.S. imperialism, whether that be in the Middle East or in Central and South America. It is the disdain for people who are not white. It is a disdain and a hatred of the other, and an attempt to purify the great America that these people have in their minds. That, by the way, is also a Democrat illusion, right? Because the Democratic presidents have kept Gitmo open, right? They've made a mess at the border as well. So this is not just a Republican ideology. Trump is escalating and accelerating what has been put in place by Democrats.
And we can go from this deportation story to his rounding up of some Native Americans, which
Yeah.
is bizarre.
I mean, it's bizarre, but it's not. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But so basically this, and there have been reports from Navajo Nation that basically they're warning their members to carry personal identification that indicates they are citizens of the United States, ironic, at all times, following reports that more than a dozen Diné, which is their word for Navajo, have been detained and questioned during immigration raids in Arizona and New Mexico. Of course, Arizona and New Mexico are also home to a lot of migrants from Central and South America, and the U.S. Gestapo, being that they just don't like anybody who's not white, are like, hey, you look kind of brown, so you must be Mexican. And then it turns out that they're Diné. And here's the thing.
You look kind of brown and you don't have the papers that say you're a good old American citizen.
Because you don't have to carry Dinah Papirin everywhere with you, but apparently you do. And I just wanted to share, this is from a really great book that I definitely recommend that people check out. It's called Border End Rule by Harsha Walia, Global Migration, Capitalism, and the Rise of Racist Nationalism. And she writes in the introduction, U.S. border rule reveals seamless relations between the carceral administration of genocide and slavery at home and imperial counterinsurgency abroad, domestic neoliberal policies of welfare retrenchment, and foreign policies of capitalist trade and local and global regimes of race. So again, this ties into Gitmo, right? Because it's part of the U.S. imperialist project that, as we've said before, is also a home game. You can't be a violent imperialist fascist abroad and then Mr. Rogers at home. She writes, the formation of the U.S.-Mexico border and immigration as a race-making regime cannot be analyzed outside the reciprocal processes of empire building and genocidal violence. She just said what I said in a more succinct and eloquent way. Framing immigration restrictions as solely anti-migrant racism ignores the way in which immigration policy is foundationally constituted through and intertwined in anti-Indigenous, anti-Black, and imperialist warfare to consolidate the U.S. as a nation state and empire. This part I found really interesting. The links between empire, race-making, and the border are perhaps best symbolized in the construction of the wall itself. Wire mesh recycled from a Japanese-American internment camp, repurposed Air Force landing strips, and ground sensors from the Vietnam War, and Elbit Systems virtual wall surveillance technology field proven on Israel's apartheid wall.
So it's a wall of all nations. Isn't that beautiful? That's
it's the United
beautiful,
Nations
folks.
Wall.
It's a kumbaya. We're all together in this wall moment.
So again, you can't, as soon as you start pulling one thread, the whole sweater comes undone. And the US as a nation building scheme is founded on imperialism, on colonialism, on genocide. So the fact that Trump wants to make Gitmo an internment camp for migrants as well as people sucked up into the US machine via the war on terror is just totally par for the course. It fits perfectly. And that's, again, why we have to stop thinking of these issues as siloed. We have to stop just trying to stay in our lane vis-a-vis our primary issues or what have you. We really have to see these things as connected because they do. And that's how they're approaching them. We need to approach them the same way. Thanks for letting me read from a book.
I know. I like it.
That makes my nerd brain very happy.
There aren't many live streams that are reading from books, but we like to bring you one every once in a while.
Me in my old lady sweater and my old lady book.
But we don't want to leave the Democrats out of this fun.
Yes.
And so this is an interesting article about how Democrats are already throwing immigrant rights movement under the bus, advocates write in an open letter.
So this is a letter that was posted on Medium, January 15th. It's titled "To All Who Stand for Immigrant Justice." If folks want to check it out there, you can. But basically, the Democrats are doing what the Democrats do. They've wasted no time. This is a report on Prism Reports that that they say that Democrats have wasted no time in criticizing immigrant-led organizations while approving tough on immigration bills that further criminalize non-citizens. They're essentially blaming the immigrants' right movement for Harris losing, because they're blaming everybody for that, saying that immigrant rights organizations should have accepted basically more violence at the border in order to keep Trump from winning. Well, at the same time, pushing for more violence at the border. So basically, the Democrats' stance on immigration mirrors similar retreats on critical issues affecting their base, including attacks on trans rights, healthcare reform, and unyielding support for Israel amidst its brutal actions against Palestinians. The Democratic establishment seems to push for compromises that align with Trump's nativist anti-immigrant agenda. Yeah, because they're nativist and anti-immigrant. I don't like the word nativist. White supremacist. Because nativist.
Why have native in the
I don't like
word?
So, and this was actually this one I saw popped up somewhere else. I don't know if you already were planning on talking about this, but 12 Democratic senators and 46 House reps voted to approve the Laken Riley Act, considered by the National Immigration Law Center to be, quote, an attack on established constitutional protections. Under the bill, a child could end up deported for being accused of stealing a candy bar, for instance, even if they didn't do it. While
isn't that convenient?
Yeah. While state attorneys could, in general, sue to block all visas to people from countries that don't fully cooperate with the U.S. deportation machine. So again, this is going after the countries of origin that the United States is already like slamming, whether that be economic warfare or corporate, warfare, things like that. So they're going to further slam those countries and then say you have to cooperate with us, which basically means that you have to allow our Gestapo surveillance into your nation. Because if you look actually like at the borders, the surveillance borders of the United States, they go far south into Mexico. So the idea of borders, again, as being these elastic spaces is really important, because the U.S. border, in terms of where the U.S. has control and where it has eyes, goes far beyond our actual border, where you'd think if you're really into borders, you wouldn't. But so basically the Democrats are agreeing with this Laken Riley Act, which they just voted on, and essentially saying that the Democrats are working hard to get down on their knees in front of the Trump administration, as opposed to being any kind of, pushback.
As they are known to do, the Democrats have the backbone of an arthritic jellyfish. So I wanted to do a little bit on Israel before we wrap up here, and this is the anniversary of the murder of Hind Rajab, who she was killed in Gaza, but her story kind of went viral more than most others, and so many people are remembering that it's been a year since that day, a year of genocide since that day. But there has been more prisoner exchanges, and an interesting question, and I covered this when there was a prisoner, I've covered it many times, but when there was a prisoner exchange 1 month in to the genocide, I mentioned this fact that a lot of Americans were kind of baffled by they didn't get much media coverage. Okay, so Hamas is releasing some hostages and Israel's releasing some women and children, and they were like, what? Some what? Israel's releasing some women and children, and it's a lot of Americans going, what women and children? Like they didn't understand who it was Israel was releasing.
Didn't they say what didn't they call them? Like some prisoners under the age of 18?
No, yeah.
Isn't that what they called them? And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. Do you mean children? Are you trying to say children?
The prisoners who are known to have an age lesser than 20, but greater than 2. Yeah. Anyway, it's happening again. There's releases of prisoners, and I think a lot of Americans are going, wait, what children? What children is Israel releasing? Yeah, because you don't hear about all of the hostages Israel holds, which has been going on
Thousands.
since before October 7th.
Way before.
And so this is a recent article from Al Jazeera. Why are there so many Palestinian children in Israeli prisons? It says at least 23 Palestinian child prisoners have been released by Israel as part of the ceasefire deal, bringing into focus Israel's systematic prosecution of Palestinian children in military courts. At least 290 Palestinian prisoners have been released in 2 batches since the Hamas-Israel ceasefire came into effect. But yeah, there are thousands, Palestinians in custody. So right now there are 10,400, according to Al Jazeera, Palestinians in Israeli custody. So Israel has about 10,000 hostages. Now, some people just point to the ones on administrative detainees, which are the ones who are held without a charge and without any trial or anything. And that number is 3,376. So if you just want to talk about the ones who have never had a charge, never had a trial, never had a nothing, that's 3,376. Way more. Hold on, I can finish. Way more than Hamas has held. But of the other 7,000, most of them, if they had a charge and a trial, it was a kangaroo court. It was like 60 seconds, literally 60 seconds, because a reporter, very rarely do reporters get to go in, but one did, and said most of the time in front of a judge was 60 seconds or less. And it's basically like an IDF says, yeah, you threw a rock at me. And the kid's like, well, no, I didn't, but you should be allowed to throw a rock. But no, I didn't. And then the judge goes, all right, 10 years and whatever. It's a meaningless kangaroo court.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 10,000 hostages in Israel's prisons and never talked about.
Yep.
Yeah, and they give a bunch of details about them, but also Israel continues their attacks on the West Bank, which has been kind of their way to continue to ethnically cleanse Palestinians, even if they're not doing as much in Gaza at the moment.
Well, and if y'all are interested in hearing more about this, I interviewed Nora Barrows-Friedman and Matthew Ho on a recent episode of Project Censored. You can check that out at projectcensored.org, or you can wherever you listen to podcasts. And Nora talks about the Palestinian Authority, which is basically like a subcontractor for the Israeli military. But Matthew talks about he recently went there and spoke with a lot of people there, and he said that it's quite clear that what Israel really wants, more than they want Gaza, they want the West Bank, and they hate places like Jenin and Tulkarm, and they just hate it. And so they really have been wanting to go after the West Bank, and a lot of them feel clearly that the ceasefire gives them that space and the resources, right? Because Israel's resources were actually pretty stretched thin, even though they were backed by the largest empire in the world, by what they were doing in Gaza. Not least of all because a lot of the poor IDF soldiers, they were very tired. I don't know if you know this, but genocide makes sleepies.
Oh, it's so exhausting.
It's very tired.
So exhausting.
So basically there is a severe and a violent push for the West Bank. And so I think that it's really important that I think a lot of people are, understandably, speaking of tired, are very tired and are very relieved, but also scared about the ceasefire. But we can't just be like, okay, we're good, and then, not pay attention anymore, because what's going on in the West Bank is looking more and more like what happened in Gaza, or still happening. People being, they're going after hospitals. They're, just indiscriminately bombing and attacking people.
They put up hundreds of new roadblocks,
yeah,
which are not just like throwing tires in the road. These are giant steel gates that you can't get through without permission from the IDF. Well, anytime you try and get through one and they talk to the IDF, well, you got to sit there through the whole process. But the IDF could arrest you for no reason. So you're going to try and limit the amount that you transfer through these checkpoints, which means basically you're stuck. You become a prisoner.
They're targeting emergency workers as well. So the playbook is just shifting slightly in terms of the geography. And I think it's important that we highlight that, while also, of course, always highlighting that this ceasefire is BS. Israel's already broken it many times, and
it's not fully BS, but in the sense, like, a lot of the bombing.
Well, in the sense that in the sense that this is actually something that
in the sense that there's nothing. Yeah.
Right. And the sense that this is actually something that Israel really believes in and wants to stick to. And, kind of like with South Korea, North Korea, technically we're still in a ceasefire. Like, that was what was agreed on in the 50s. And it's still, so it's not that kind of ceasefire is what I'm saying. Like, don't expect that kind of ceasefire. So yeah.
Yeah, very true. Let's see. I think we're gonna, unless there's anything you wanted to squeeze in, I think we're gonna wrap up.
I think that's it. Just there's more. Like I said, Project Censored is what I do most of the time, so check that out wherever you listen to podcasts. And I have a couple of more pieces up on artkillingapathy.com, like poems. And
artkillingapathy.com is where you can find all of Eleanor's stuff.
I think that's all I got.
That was the David Letterman pencil in the air. And if you like this podcast or you like this live stream, but you haven't checked out the podcast, which is the audio version, but it means you can listen to it in your car. It's called Common Censored.
He leads pretty fake.
Oh. But I also wanted to say, I keep trying to create a link to our new Discord channel, and it keeps expiring the invite, even though I click don't expire. So we're going to try one more time, and it's now tinyurl.com, or Tiny Earl, if you know him. He is an adorable little man. tinyurl.com/unredacted Discord, because my new show is going to be called Unredacted tonight. Woo! I got to make sure to talk fast during that, because I know you're going to woo during it. So it's called Unredacted.
I'm sorry that I'm supportive of
Please
your work.
do no more supportive. None. tinyurl.com/unredacted Discord should get you to the Discord channel. But we'll see if this one expires too. And we're hanging out, chatting there all the time, 24/7. It's free to talk. So
not we, unless you mean the royal we. I'm not there.
I just meant people.
Okay.
Cool, awesome people. Because you're all awesome. Except for the two trolls here. You can go yourselves. And become a member at leecamp.net. Support this show and keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.